talking about 100 and, what would you say, 127.2?
You talking about
right now?
As a standard minimum?
Yeah, as a standard.
I think the chief said they're at 100 and...
They're at 145 now,
Right.
but if we set the level at 122,
A minimum.
a minimum, you know, the police, the administration could come in and say, oh, well, our minimum level only needs to be 122, so we're gonna lay off X more police officers and just get to the minimum level that the ordinance has required us to do. I don't think that's where we want to be. I think we want to be in a position where if we set that level, we always want to fund it to a higher level, because once we adopt the budget, the administration has the ability to go in and make cuts without our approval. They can lay people off and not spend the money. The only problem with the minimum level, it gets to a level that is identified, and the administration can always say, well, based on your ordinance, based on the standard that you've used, we're now down to the minimum level, which may not be the level that we really want for our community. And that's the downside to that.
Can I jump in right here?
Because I think we want to continue to fund as much into public safety in public services like waste collection as we possibly can. And I think we sometimes hamstring ourselves when we set minimum levels, because in the future, the administration could say, well, you funded it at 145, minimum level in the ordinance is 122, so I'm going to cut that service down to 122 and be in compliance with the ordinance. Well, really, we want it at the level of 145. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, but just to respond to that, and I understand what you're saying, Councilman. I mean, because it's the standard of the minimum is just that. It's the standard of the minimum. And if we're going to author an ordinance, we can author that ordinance to whatever standard that we wanted. If we wanted a standard of 145, which you're proposing right now, we can make it at 145 and not at 123. We can make that minimum at 145 now. And then that way the administration has to comply with the letter of the law, which is an ordinance. So if you want to do it at 145 like you're suggesting, let's do it at 145.
No, I was using, Councilman Neely, I don't want to get into debate, I was using the analogy of the number that was based on some sort of formula that was out there set by the Michigan Municipal League or the National League of Cities or something. I wasn't saying that we funded at a certain level. I was just using the analogy that you used as what standard do you follow.
But the mayor said we were going to have the largest public safety, force that we can afford, right? So I don't think the administration would go in and say that if we can afford more and if we budget more, I don't think the administration would go in and willfully say that we're going to take it to the standard of the minimum because the law says.
Well, and I just want to jump in there too. Then we are setting the minimum basically by budget then, if that's what you're saying the administration.
No, that's what Scott said. I just said a minimum by whatever the standard or the formula, whatever the standard is. And we can do whatever we want. It doesn't mean
absolutely,
but we can do what we want as a body. But the thing about it, like Councilman Lloyd has said, doing nothing is inappropriate. Well,
I don't think that we as a body are going to do anything, and we're about to do that next week when the budget is presented to us. We're going to set what we think is the minimum within that department.
And if we can maintain that, and we can hold the administration's feet to the fire on that, we should do that.
Councilman Lloyd.
But I want us to be cautious. Again, I'm not talking against it. Again, the worst thing to do is nothing. But one thing I want us to be careful. We don't want to get ourselves, just as you said, this living organism or mechanism where we can go in and change it if the residency or the population level decreases. What I want us to caution ourselves on, we don't want to pass our ordinance setting those levels, and we're steadily going back changing the minimal number in that ordinance, even if it's per capita, because again, now we got to deal with the issue of us setting a minimum standard, and then now we're going back to change by ordinance and make the minimum standard lower when the public and even all of us are crying out for an increase in personnel in those areas. Y'all see what I'm saying? So I think that's some. If we set it at 145 now, and next year we set it at 145. That's where we are now. And let's say we can fund at our levels right now 145, and next year we have a $10 million decrease in revenue. and now we can only afford 125, okay? Just throw that out there. Now we have to go back and amend that ordinance and change it to decrease the number when the public is crying out for us to increase the number. You get what I'm saying? And my thing is this: if we're going to have to decrease the number, if the number is going to be decreased anyway based on the revenue, hopefully we get to a point where it's increasing. Then I guess my question is based on the population, and if that keeps decreasing, I just want us to just think about whether or not we want to set a minimal number, and we're already there at that number. We're above that number now. When in the future we're going to have to go back and change it. I mean, that's a real concern.
The mayor wants to jump in real quick.
You know, I just wanted to add on the budget piece. It's not just about next year's budget. When, as we had agreed, you see the general fund budget amendment, and Michael Townsend will be here at that meeting and can talk the same kind of conversation you always have during the budget. The level that we propose, how many individuals does that allow us to have from here through the end of the fiscal year? What I'd ask for your help in is making the tough decisions to balance this budget. I reject some of the statements that have been made here tonight about this city. I think Flint's a damn good city. And I chose to raise my kids here. My parents and my grandmother have chose to stay in this city. So, yeah, we've had our challenges. Trash, on the schedule we proposed, or maybe you can only golf at one city course instead of 4, or maybe we can get back open to 2, depending on what we agree on. But we can't live in this city by this lowest common denominator, where everything we do is dictated by the person who's going to illegal dump no matter what we do, or the person who's going to try to strike fear into this community by setting fires on purpose in neighborhoods at a time when we're going through a tough situation. So I would ask that this council not live by that lowest common denominator, but that you step up through the appropriate process that's already established by charter. Help us make the tough decisions about where to put our limited resources. And I hope you have confidence that we will provide that largest public safety force that we can afford. And I outlined right from the beginning in my remarks how we have disproportionately protected public safety from that $6 million deficit. And when we bring that proposal to you for formal approval, here's what you have my word on. If you dictate cuts in departments and you add dollars to public safety, this administration will follow that budget. So if you make tough decisions by your democratic process to remove resources from certain functions, to fund whether it's public safety or the 68th District Court or 911 or the fire department, this administration will live by the promise that we will have the largest public safety force that we can afford. So help us make the tough decisions about what to do with the dollars we have. I believe that long-term, residents, businesses, investors, they want to be in a place that's fiscally responsible. And if we can't do that, then all the other services which are dependent on that fiscal responsibility are called into question. And it's been a long time since a group of elected council people and elected administration could work together to responsibly spend the dollars that this